Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite abstract strategy games. Before I jump into the top 10 list, I'll mention some honorable mentions and a few, basically what a definition of this type of game is, because I found it quite difficult to narrow down this list until I came up with a pretty harsh definition, because pretty much every tabletop game I play has abstracted elements. Even the most thematic games use often something simple like dice rolling that is an abstracted form of something that happens in real life. And so the two main requirements that I drew the line with are abstract strategy, for the purpose of this list, includes a spatial element, a strong spatial element. So while on Board Game Geek there's games like Hierarchy, a game that I recently played and really liked, Hierarchy does not really use a spatial element. Order matters in terms of the cards that you play in Hierarchy, but there's no spatial element to it. And the other element is that theme is, how did I say this on my little notepad here? Irrelevant. Theme is irrelevant to these games. So while some of these games have a theme, the theme itself is irrelevant to the game. Yeah, those are the two main requirements. I'm sure we can... In fact, I don't really want to have a big discussion about what abstract strategy is. If you have a different definition, that's totally fine. I look forward to hearing your favorite games in the comments. But we don't have to debate what it is. I think that drawing that line is completely arbitrary and subjective, and I'm just going to name the games that I thought were eligible for this list. So the honorable mentions for this list, the games that didn't quite make the top 10, were Shobu, Go, Hive, Qwirkle, The Duke, Reef, Element, Tuki, Kingdom Builder, Chess, Mental Blocks, Boca, and Lots. Those are, pretty much all the other abstract strategy games that I played, and they aren't on the list. So my number 10 is a game that I don't own, a game called The Climbers. I've been wanting to do a list of games with stand-up moments, or games that force you to stand up while you play, and The Climbers is certainly one of them. Climbers is a game where you have this tower of blocks, and you are trying to essentially keep moving. You're not even trying to move to the top of the tower, but you're trying to keep moving, and you can only move onto a specific color. And on your turn, you have to take one block off the tower and place it somewhere on the tower, showing your surface, the color of your pawn. And then ideally, you would also move your pawn. I don't think you have to move it, or maybe you do. I think every turn you might need to actually move your pawn. But it's a game where you are standing up and looking at this abstraction of a mountain, essentially, and turning the colors of the blocks, which doesn't correlate to anything related to mountain climbing, so that you can keep on moving, so you have an eligible place to move. But I really like that you are standing up and moving around the table. That doesn't happen often with many games. So that's why The Climbers is my number 10 favorite abstract strategy game. My number 9 is one that I have that I played recently, Spirits of the Forest. This is, I believe, the deluxe edition. I will, if I haven't already, while you're watching this, if I haven't already done a video about it, I will very soon. But it's a game where it's basically a set collection game with a spatial element. With the spatial element being that you have these rows of tiles or cards, depending on your edition, and you can only pick select cards from the far left or the far right. So all of these cards are available, and then there's off screen here, the other side would be the cards available there. And you can place your eggs on certain tiles to make them a little bit more expensive for other players to get, kind of reserve them for yourself, but not completely reserve them. And it's just a pleasant game. I've enjoyed both of my plays of it so far, and the second play was much more strategic in terms of where I want to place the eggs based on the sets that I want to get. You can learn more about it in the video that I have already posted or will soon post, but that's why Spirits of the Forest is my number 9 favorite abstract strategy game. My number 8 favorite game is a game from my childhood, a game called Stratego. This is a two-player game. In fact, I thought that more two-player games would be on this list because a lot of abstract strategy games are, but Stratego is one of the few games that actually is a two-player game. This is a game where you control a battlefield where your units are known only to you. Your opponent can't see what your units are. And you are moving those units across the board. They have different rules for movement depending on the unit. And you are slowly essentially killing the opponent's units and they're killing your units until one of you captures the other's flag that you've hidden. But my favorite thing about Stratego is the setup of the game. You get to feel so devious and mischievous during setup because you're placing all these units on the board facing away from your opponent. They don't know where they are, and you are planning out how you hope the opponent will interact with your board, but you don't really know until they actually start taking turns. So I love the setup of Stratego. And the gameplay itself is also a lot of fun, and that's why it's my number 8 favorite abstract strategy game. My number 7 is a game that I will only play at a specific player count, and I love it at that player count. And in fact, it's my go-to game for when I have exactly 3 players and a little bit of time to kill, and that is Seikatsu. Seikatsu is a game, here's a nice picture of the board on the back, where you are placing these little round tiles made of bakelite, really nice chunky tiles on the board, and you're scoring points as you place them for the birds that are grouped next to other birds of that same color, that same type. And you're getting points right away. And then at the end of the game, you are looking at the board from your angle, looking at the columns on the board, and scoring points based on the total number of flowers. So the flowers are these things surrounding the birds on the tiles. Total points of the flower type that occurs the most in that column, and you get kind of escalated scoring based on how many flowers of that type you have in that column. It's very abstract. I can't even explain this game thematically at all, but that's okay because it's so much fun. I really enjoy how easy it is to teach and play Seikatsu, and I like that push and pull between where are you going to score right now, are you going to score at the end of the game, and how every piece you place on this board, because you're going to fill up this entire board, impacts what your opponents gain in terms of points now or points later in the game. So Seikatsu, this is my number 7 favorite abstract strategy game and one of my favorite 3-player games. My number 6 favorite game is one that I don't have, and it is Master Labyrinth. Labyrinth is another game that I played as a kid. It seems like a couple of these games come from my childhood. In fact, there's another one on the list that definitely does as well. And where you are, on your turn, you are simply taking a tile and you are pushing it into this board of tiles that shift over as you push that one tile into the board. And it changes this labyrinth that you are trying to navigate through to collect different things. Master Labyrinth does that same thing. I have a recent video about it, in fact, but you're trying to collect specific things in Master Labyrinth in a specific order. Just the setup of the board is also a little bit different in the way it plays. And in Master Labyrinth, you have these little magic wand tokens that you can use to take an extra turn if you ever need to, which really opens up the game because there are certain turns in Master Labyrinth where you don't do a lot on your turn, you just push the tile in. But if you had one more turn, you could do something awesome. And so Master Labyrinth gives you the ability to do that. I love the game, and it is really a fantastic game. And that's why Master Labyrinth specifically is my number 6 favorite abstract strategy game. My number 5 favorite game in this category is the original Azul. I really love the original Azul. It's a drafting game where you're taking tiles and you're placing them on this mat. You're slowly filling up this little quilt-like section of your mat. Azul, I think they represent tiles or a fresco or something like that. But the drafting is really satisfying. You're getting tiles and impacting what other players can get, and you're just the element of filling in these different places on your board in a specific order. It feels like engine building, even though you're not really getting better at anything over the course of the game. You are the main sense of progression is that you are scoring more points based on adjacent tiles when you place new tiles on the board. But it's just a very pleasant, satisfying game, and I really enjoy it. Beautiful components too. So that's the original Azul, my number 5 favorite abstract strategy game. My number 4 is Patchwork. Patchwork, I really debated whether or not it should be on this list because it does have a theme. You are making a quilt, but you could completely remove that theme and the game would make just as much sense. The game is adorable because of the theme, but I love Patchwork anyway. Patchwork is a polyomino game, one of my favorite polyomino games, where you are filling up this quilt with these polyomino shapes, and I particularly love time. I love time as a resource or a mechanism in a game, and in Patchwork, one of the resources that you're spending is time. So when you gain these tiles, you're getting these tiles and putting them on your mat, and each tile has a time cost, like how much time it takes to sew into your quilt, essentially. And it is your turn in Patchwork if you have spent the least time at any given point in the game. And so you're trying to get more turns in the game of Patchwork by spending less time, but you might be getting worse pieces for it, and you might not be achieving the goals that you need to accomplish throughout the game, specifically filling in your quilt. So I love the use of time as a resource, and I just love the feeling of completing your quilt in Patchwork. It's a wonderful little game, and that's why it is my number 4 favorite abstract strategy game. My number 3 is, Blokus. Let me actually grab this one. Totally forgot to grab this from my pile. Well, Blokus, another childhood game, is my childhood copy, is an awesome game. I love playing Blokus with exactly 4, and I do love this version of Blokus the best. I've played at least one of the other versions. I think there's like a 3D version. I haven't played that version, but I love just the standard square polyomino Blokus, where the idea is, here, they show it in the back of the box here, is basically to get rid of all of your pieces, or as many of your not just pieces, but the number of squares in your pieces as possible over the course of the game. There's a ton of interaction in this game, but I love the idea of blocking other players and also kind of squeezing through these gaps to survive and open up new opportunities for you. It's a game where turtling actually isn't good. Like, creating your own little area doesn't end up being all that beneficial. You really need to slip through those cracks and have a ton of backup plans, basically. I love using backup plans in games. It's just a very satisfying game, and it just happens to really click with the way my mind works. Blokus, my number, 3. My number 2 favorite abstract strategy game, and this is one of the lists where I'm surprised by how many games on this list I own. But my number 2 is Sagrada. Sagrada is just such a pleasant, satisfying, beautiful game. I love that you're creating your own little stained glass window here. Not that it really matters it's a stained glass window, but I like the theme of it anyway. I like the completions. I like kind of the completion requirements. You have these little mats that you're trying, or not these mats, it's over here. You're trying to place dice of a specific color, sometimes a specific number, sometimes not at all, on this mat. And you're trying to fill in all the spaces if possible to meet certain goals. To put as many the highest pips of your color die. You have a secret goal of your color on this little mat, but also every time you play, there's a set of 3 random goals that everyone's trying to achieve. And again, it's a drafting game like Azul. I don't know if the draft is my favorite part of the game, but I just love the placement strategy of these dice and the satisfaction of putting them into your little holder and getting points at the end of the game. I love Sagrada. I recommend this game to anybody who loves these abstract strategy games. I own my number 1 game on this list, but it's a fairly new game, and a friend is borrowing it for a review of his own. And so I don't have it right now. I actually just handed it off to him yesterday, and that is Azul Summer Pavilion. I absolutely adore this version of Azul. As much as I like the original, this version just really, really clicks with me. You'll see a video about it very soon from me. I think maybe it's going live this week. But the thing that differentiates this for me from really many of these games and from other Azuls is the sense of progression throughout the game. Not only are you working towards more points throughout the game of Azul Summer Pavilion, but you are also accomplishing little goals along the way. You're getting these benefits, these completion benefits throughout the game. So instead of just getting points, you're actually getting better at doing things, and you're getting better things throughout the game as you play Azul Summer Pavilion. It's hard to show here, but you're basically fitting together these diamond pieces, and when there's certain gaps in between those pieces, when you surround them with the diamond pieces and you complete those gaps, you get an extra tile, or an extra 2 tiles, or even an extra 3 tiles for one of the specific bonuses. And that feels incredibly satisfying to gain. I also love just the flexibility in this game. While it is a fairly tight game in the end, you are, unlike the other Azul, you are drafting a bunch of tiles each round and then deciding where to place them. So you aren't placing them right away when you draft. So you have a lot of information as to what you actually have when you decide where you want to put them on your board. You can also even hold over pieces from round to round. So you have the extra flexibility of, hey, I don't actually need any pieces this round. I'll wait for next round. And also, this is another comparison to the original Azul, but I think this is really clever. There's a wild type of token in the game. It changes from round to round. And whereas normally in Azul, you typically grab the tile that there's the most of in any given pile. So if there's like 3 blues and 1 green in a pile, you might just grab those 3 blues. But in Azul Summer Pavilion, there might be another pile where there's only 2 tokens, maybe 2 blues, but there's also a red tile. And the red is wild that round. And so you might just say, okay, well, it's better for me to, instead of taking 3 blues, I'll still get 3 tokens because of the way the wilds work. You get 1 wild if you choose from a pool that has a wild in it. There's just a ton of stuff to like about this version of Azul. I love it. It is currently my favorite abstract strategy game, my #1 game. So yeah, that's my list. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on your favorite abstract strategy games. And actually, if you have any cooperative abstract strategy games, I'd love to hear about them in the comments, because I just realized that everything on this list is a competitive game. Every game on this list is. Even in my honorable mentions, I guess Mental Blocks. Mental Blocks is the one cooperative game that I even mentioned on the list. So if there's any others, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Yeah. All right. I look forward to seeing you in the comments below to see your recommendations, your favorite abstract strategy games. Thanks.